My name is Bree. When I went to high school, during my senior year, early on in the first semester, I remember noticing this one new kid in our school. I would call him Dave for this story. I had never seen him at our school before, and I had a history class with him. For the most part, that's all I knew of him. Beyond that, I didn't really notice him much at all. The next semester, I didn't have any classes with Dave. It was pretty early on in that second semester that one of my friends told me something shortly after I had gotten to school one day. She told me that Dave had been posting some really weird and borderline creepy Snapchat stories of me. Nobody in my friend group was friends with Dave on Snapchat, but apparently my friend had heard from a mutual friend about it. Somebody who was friends with Dave on Snapchat had seen his stories and found them really odd. When I asked for examples, I was told that he had occasionally taken photos of me in class or in the hallway without my knowledge. Other times, he would post random pictures and mention me for whatever reason. To me, this did seem pretty strange, and I felt like I should tell Dave to stop. But I knew this might be really awkward to do, or he might deny it altogether. I thought about it for a little while, but I never really saw Dave anymore anyways. I didn't have any classes with him anymore. Plus, I never saw him in the hallways in between classes either. Our school was pretty big, with about 2,000 students total. Over time, I just kind of ignored it. I figured that maybe he was a bit of a creep, or maybe he had a crush on me, but if he didn't see me anymore, he would get over it. Roughly 2 weeks after finding out about this, I was told once again by a friend that Dave had posted a weird story about me. My friend had actually befriended Dave on Snapchat to see his stories. He posted a picture of my car in the student parking lot, saying the caption, "My favorite girl's car." Obviously, I found this really weird, and I knew that I needed to ask Dave to stop. Unfortunately, I could never seem to find Dave in the hallways, and I didn't want to go out looking for him. I decided that I would just add Dave on Snapchat, just for the purpose of asking him to stop posting weird things about me. So that day, when I got home from school, I asked my friend for Dave's username, and she gave it to me. Once I added Dave, he added me back, and he immediately snapped me saying hi. I snapped him back, telling him that I was made aware of the strange things that he was posting about me, and that I needed him to stop doing so. He opened my snap, but didn't reply. Then, I deleted him. A couple of hours later, when I was in my bedroom, I suddenly heard a loud noise against my window. I had been at my desk finishing homework, which was about 5 feet from the window. I looked over to it, and there was another loud bang. This time, the window broke, and glass shattered everywhere. I jumped back and saw Dave standing right outside the window. He then started cursing at me. I was terrified. I already knew he did some creepy things, but this was really crossing the line. Then he came closer and started to crawl through the broken window. I jumped up and ran out of the room. My parents were home, but on the other side of the house in the living room. I ran over to them and was frantically screaming that somebody had broken in. Dave did not leave my bedroom, and after we called the police, he must have left because when they got there, he was gone. Thankfully, I knew exactly who he was, and he was found that same night. It was a bad idea for me to add him on Snapchat because my location was on, and I guess Dave could see exactly where I lived then. Since then, I've turned my location off, and I'm much more careful of who I add on Snapchat. Nothing else crazy like this has happened to me, though. This story happened back when I was in college. Like many college guys, I used Snapchat quite a bit. I had probably over 1,000 Snapchat friends and would communicate with most of my friends through the app. I got to know a lot of my classmates better through snapping them or having snap streaks. Anyways, to get to the story, it all started one night when I was studying in my bedroom. I lived in a house with 2 roommates who were some good friends that I had made my freshman year. I had my own bedroom upstairs in the house, and so did each of my roommates. When I study, I tend to get distracted by my phone quite a bit, and when I looked at it on my desk, I saw somebody had added me on Snapchat. It was a girl named Kaylee. Her username didn't have a last name in it, just a bunch of numbers, so I wasn't quite sure who she was, but I figured that she went to my school, which is pretty large. I added her back, and I snapped her a picture of my face saying hi. She snapped me back, and she appeared to be around my age. We snapped back and forth for the rest of the night, and she told me that she also went to my university. The next night, I found myself home alone and bored. Both of my roommates went to their intramural sports games, and I had stayed home with an assignment, but I finished much earlier than I thought I would. I was still snapping Kaylee, and I told her about my situation. That's when she asked if I wanted her to come over. I really hadn't expected that, and I would have expected her to want to meet in a public place, or at least snap a few days before meeting, but I was cool with it. Kaylee asked me for my address, and I gave it to her. Both me and her were both on the Snap map, and it appeared that she lived on the other side of campus. Kaylee snapped me that she was leaving and would be at my place shortly. I went down and attempted to clean up the house a little bit. About 15 minutes later, there was a knock at the front door. I walked downstairs, expecting to see Kaylee, but instead saw some guy. There was a guy with a jacket and winter hat standing at the front door. I was really confused. I opened up the door crack and asked what the guy wanted. He told me that he was Kaylee's friend and had given her a ride to my house. He told me that Kaylee was in the car down the street, but he wanted to make sure it was safe and I wasn't some crazy person. He told me that he was just trying to look out for her and asked if he could come inside and look around. I was really weirded out by this. It caught me by surprise, and I told the guy to give me a second, and then I closed the door. I checked the Snap map, and it showed Kaylee as being literally right outside of my front door, right where the guy was standing. I knew this wasn't right. I snapped Kaylee, asking who the guy was. She began typing quickly, and as she was typing, I looked outside and saw the guy typing on his phone. Eventually, she sent me a chat, and it said basically the same thing that the guy had said. The guy then knocked on the door again. I yelled from the other side for the guy to just leave, and I wasn't falling for his tricks. I then watched him walk away, and thankfully, he left. About 20 minutes later, I got a snap from Kaylee. I opened it to see a picture of the guy flipping me off. I opened it, but didn't respond. A short time later, I got another snap. This one was of the same guy saying, "You still fell for a fake girl, you effing idiot." I then blocked the account. He was right in the fact that I had fallen for a fake girl, but I had seen pictures of her and wondered how he had done it. After some research though, I learned that the guy probably got some type of app that allows you to send pictures of snaps of whatever you want without it appearing as an uploaded photo. It's complicated, but not too hard to figure out. All the guy needed was multiple selfies of the same girl. I had noticed that her selfie style was a little different, but I looked past it. This whole thing was kind of embarrassing for me, but I'm just happy to say that I'm okay. I'm a female and in college. This all happened about 6 months ago. I've had a Snapchat since I was in middle school and have more friends on that app than I can even count. I get added by new people all the time, and I usually accept the people who add me, but that has since changed. I would post stories occasionally when I was with friends or whatever. One time, a guy screenshotted my story who I didn't know. I didn't really think much of it though until it happened again. When it did, I clicked on his profile, and I really had no idea who the guy was or when we had become Snapchat friends. He didn't have a Bitmoji, so I had no idea what he looked like. I searched his name on Instagram and Facebook, but it was a pretty common name and brought back no useful results. After that, I moved on. The next time I posted a story, he screenshotted it again though. This time, I sent him a message and asked him why he always screenshotted my stories. He opened up my Snapchat a very short time later and replied with a picture. I opened it up and was extremely creeped out. It was a picture of his wall that had countless photos of me taped to it. I saw many of the photos that I had posted on Instagram and all of my recent Snapchat stories. There were also some pictures from my Facebook and basically any photo of me that was online. But it got worse. There were some photos of me on his wall that I didn't remember being taken, like just pictures of me walking. I took a screenshot of the picture that he sent me, and then I blocked his account. I couldn't believe what I had seen. Then, I made my Instagram and Facebook accounts private. But that's when I realized maybe this guy was already one of my followers or friends. I searched his name on Facebook, and sure enough, we were friends. I showed his profile to my parents and told them about what had happened. That's when I learned something very creepy. They told me that he was one of our neighbors and lived just down the street. We live in a pretty large neighborhood, and I definitely didn't know all of our neighbors. I only know a few. I guess my dad had helped him snowblow his driveway a few years back. I couldn't believe it. My dad went over to talk to the guy, but he denied everything. I blocked the guy on all social media, and I hope I never see him again. I'm a female and graduated from high school a few years ago. This story took place during my junior year. At the time, like most people, I used Snapchat to talk to most of my friends and would be on the app all the time. One day, I was back home from school and happened to be home alone. Both my parents were out shopping and my younger sister was at her friend's house. I was just doing homework in my room that I really needed to get done and playing music from my phone, which I had at my desk with me. I would occasionally go on my phone to snap my friends or change the song. As I was on Snapchat, I accidentally swiped over too far and went to the Snap Map. I was about to go back, but then noticed that according to my Snap Map, my friend Abby was right outside of my house. I hadn't heard a knock on the door or anything like that, and it seemed really strange, because Abby went to school with me and was in my grade, but it wasn't like we were good friends or anything. In fact, I don't think I had ever hung out with Abby outside of school. I knew she lived in my same city, but didn't live in my exact neighborhood. I decided to send her a snap and ask her what she was doing at my house. After I sent it, before I could even put my phone down, I saw that she had opened the snap, but as I waited for her to respond, she never did. It was really strange that my Snap Map was showing her currently outside of my house. I looked out my bedroom window, but didn't see her or anybody. Then, I decided to leave my bedroom and look outside the front door where I would have a better view. When I got to the living room, I wasn't hearing or seeing anything. I walked towards the front door, and it was then that I thought I heard some movement coming from the back end of the house outside. I looked back over to the back door where I heard the noise. There wasn't a good view from outside where I was, so I couldn't immediately see anything. I walked over to the back door and looked outside of it. When I did, I didn't see anything at all. I went out the back door and looked around. I even called out for Abby, but I got no response. I then walked all around the yard looking before going back inside. I looked at my phone once again and now saw that Abby showed as being a few blocks away. I guessed that she had left. I decided to call her because it seemed so strange to me, but when I did, she didn't answer me. The next day, when I got to school, I decided to find Abby and ask her what she was doing at my house. I knew sort of where her locker was, so before class, I approached her and asked. When I did, she looked confused. She told me that she hadn't been there, and after telling her I saw her on my Snap Map, she was even more confused. She said that she had lost her phone the previous day and thought that somebody had stolen it from her. Suddenly, it became much more creepy to me. That hadn't been Abby in my house, but somebody else. I went right back on my phone to look at her location on Snapchat, but the location of her account was now off. When I got home from school that day, I told my parents about what had happened. We all kept a close eye outside for the next few days, but luckily never saw anybody. Lately on Snapchat, there seems to be a lot of bots. I used to be added by spam accounts every once in a while, but not very often. Within the last few months, though, it seems to be happening much more than before. I'm not sure if that's how it's been for everyone else or just me. But anyways, a couple of weeks ago, I was on my phone and on Instagram while bored in between classes. I'm in college and have a gap in between classes during Mondays and Wednesdays. As I was on Instagram, I saw a notification come on the top of my screen that somebody had added me on Snapchat. I didn't recognize the name, and it sounded fake to me, so I figured it was definitely a bot. I was so sure of this that I didn't even bother to go to Snapchat. I just stayed on Instagram. After my class was over, I then went home. I live off of campus in a sort of older college house with 2 other guys as my roommates. When I got back home, I was the only one there and went up to my room. I noticed that the bot account that had added me on Snapchat had sent me a snap. I then went on Snapchat to block and delete the account and was expecting to see the normal spam chat that the bots would send me. But when I got to Instagram, I saw that I hadn't been sent a chat, but instead a purple square as though it was a video. I debated even opening it, but out of curiosity, I decided to. After I clicked on it, I was surprised by what I saw. It was a video of a dark room being lit up only by the light of a camera, as if the person's phone had the flash on. They were walking around a dark room, and I occasionally saw their feet and part of their legs as they were walking. It appeared to be an unfinished basement that they were in. I then started to hear a creepy laughing noise. As the videos went on, the camera began to show more around the basement, and I realized that it looked an awful lot like our basement. I then noticed the TV box that we had down there, and that's when I knew for sure. The video then seemed 100 times more creepy to me than it already was, and my heart started pounding.
The person in the video kept walking around and laughing, and then the camera turned to face the person. It was a man smiling with really long and messy hair. I had no idea who he was. The video then abruptly ended when it seemed like he was about to say something. I immediately left my bedroom and walked down the stairs to the basement door. I put my ear up to it and listened closely. I didn't hear anything at first, and I even thought about going down there, but then thought I heard a noise. I then didn't waste any time and left our house and got into my car. I decided to drive away because I didn't feel safe there anymore and went back to campus. I then told all my roommates about what had happened. Later that day, when we were all together, we felt much more brave and returned. We decided to all go down to the basement, but when we did, we found that it was empty and nobody was inside of it. We went around the house outside and saw that one of the windows leading down to the basement was broken and appeared to be open. We ended up fixing that up, and since then, the person has deleted me on Snapchat, and I have no idea who they are. I went to a pretty big college. There was a ton of students that went there, and I enjoyed the experience. This was a few years ago now, but one day after one of my classes, I happened to meet a girl. At the time, I was a freshman, and this was like sort of early on in my first semester. I had only made a few new friends that were in some of my classes. When I was leaving one of my pretty large classes, a girl was walking next to me, who I assumed was in my class, and she complimented me on my shoes. It took me by surprise, and when I saw her, I thought she was good looking, and I complimented her back. This led to me introducing myself to her, and after briefly talking, she asked me for my Snap. I was excited by this, and we snapped for the next few days quite a bit. Her name was Jenna, and after getting to know each other over Snapchat, she asked if I wanted to hang out with her that night. I said yes, and she said that her and her roommates were going to the beach to have a fire. At our campus, it was right by a lake, and at one point of the lake there was a beach area and had spots set up for campfires. It was a sort of popular thing for the students to do. I had to work at my campus job until almost 9 p.m. that night, and told Jenna I could come afterwards, and she said that would be great. After work, I drove the 5 minutes or so to the beach and parked at one of the little parking lots. The park area was rather big, and I had never been there before. Jenna snapped me and told me that they were down at the far end of the beach away from the parking lot. She said she would turn on her Snapchat location for me to follow, and when she did, I saw that she was much farther down from where I had parked, but there were no other parking lots. I got out of my car and started to walk into the sand. It was really dark out there, and I had to use the flashlight on my phone to really see. At the end of the beach, there was a wooded area connecting the park to the beach. I walked along the water for a good 2 or 3 minutes looking out for anyone, but I wasn't seeing them. I saw on the Snap map that I was getting closer to Jenna, but I wasn't there yet. I kept on walking, when suddenly, out of nowhere, I heard the sound of somebody walking towards me rather quickly. They were coming at me from the side near the woods, and I looked over and shined my light. For a split second, I saw the figure of a man, and he was walking right towards me, but as I shined the light on him, he darted to the side and away. I then looked over to him again, and saw that he was coming towards me aggressively now. I kept walking down the beach and tried to dodge away from him, until I felt the man start to grab me. I jumped away and ran quickly up towards the woods. I put my phone in my pocket so the man wouldn't be able to see where I was, and when I had separated myself from the man by a few feet, I turned to the direction that I had come from. I heard the guy running behind me on the beach. He was only a few feet behind me, but eventually, I began to outrun him. I kept sprinting as fast as I possibly could, and somehow, I made it back to where I had parked the car. I desperately got back inside of my car, and drove off as fast as I could without looking back. When I had made it far enough away, I got back on Snapchat to call Jenna and tell her that there was a crazy guy on the beach who had chased me. When I went to call her, though, I was shocked. Jenna had blocked me. It was then that I realized Jenna likely wasn't who she said she was, and instead, she had set me up. I'm a senior in college at the moment. This happened during last semester in the fall. Like most college kids, I use Snapchat to communicate with the majority of my friends, and I've used it for many years. I don't really get added by people that much unless I know them in person, so around the beginning of last semester when I started getting added by people a lot, I thought it was strange. It didn't take me long at all to figure out that the people adding me were bots. I would get added by a bot roughly once a week, sometimes multiple times in a week. They would always be a female, and oftentimes would send me some sort of spam chat message or something like that. When this happened, I would always just ignore it and would never add them back or anything like that. One day, I got added by another account with a female name. I looked at the account to see that it was more than likely another spam account. I didn't recognize the name, and the user didn't have a snap score when I looked. After that, I deleted them and moved on. But a short time later, I received a Snapchat from them. It was a text message, and I expected it to be another spam message, but when I clicked on the chat, it was pretty threatening. They said something like I better watch my back, and I was in trouble. They also said they were going to get me. This actually got me to respond. I asked who this was and why they said that. They only responded to say basically the same thing, but in all caps. I was kind of creeped out by this. I was a pretty quiet guy and didn't really have that many friends at college, but the friends that I did have were very close, and I knew they wouldn't do something like that to me. But still, I decided to ask any of them if they knew anything about it. They all told me no, and didn't seem to know why I was getting these messages. The next day, I got another threatening and cryptic message. It was just saying basically that I was a bad person and that I was in trouble. I asked who the person was who was sending me this. They didn't respond to me at all, and at that point, I decided to block them. That way, they wouldn't be able to contact me anymore. But later in that day, I saw I was added by another account. This account was another female name. I decided to look up the name, but it came back with no results on all social media sites that I looked it up on. They sent me the same message again, and I immediately blocked the account this time also. After that, I started getting paranoid. Everywhere that I went around campus, I would wonder if I was being watched, or who wanted to get me. When I was in classes, I would wonder if it was another student, or when I was in the cafeteria, I would look around to see if anyone was watching me. I never seemed to get any clues as to why someone was threatening me like this. I didn't get added again for 2 days, but then I was added by another person. This person's name I also didn't recognize, and I got another message from them. At this point, I looked in my settings and was able to change them so that nobody could send me snaps unless I had added them back. This made me feel a little bit better. I did get added by another person the next day, but I never bothered to look after I didn't recognize their name. After this, I figured whoever it was would give up. I didn't get added by anyone else for a while. I was starting to feel better about things, until one day I was added by another user again. When I looked, it was actually a girl who I had in a class with me, and she occasionally talked to me. I added her back, but a short time later, I saw that she had snapped me. When I opened up the message, I could clearly see that it was someone else pretending to be her. Her snap score was very low, and I got another threatening message. I immediately blocked the account. This really creeped me out to know that whoever was threatening me even knew the name of the classmates who I talked to. For the rest of the semester, I was on edge, but I didn't get added by any more people. This semester has gone by fine, and nothing has happened since. I just still wonder who it was, though, and why they were doing it. I'm a 23-year-old female living in a 2-bedroom house with my roommate. I moved into the house last year. My roommate is one of my good friends from college who happened to take a job in the same city as me, which isn't very far from the college we attended together. I would use Snapchat every day and had a pretty large number of friends on there and people who I snapped. I would get added by guys that I didn't know quite a bit. Sometimes I wouldn't know them at all, and other times they would be guys that I went to school with or actually did know in some way. One night last summer, I was in my bedroom just chilling on my laptop when I casually looked at my phone to see a few Snapchat notifications. I saw that somebody had added me named Josh M. I didn't really think that I recognized him, but I wasn't quite sure, so I added him back and then was going to send him a snap asking who he was. But before I could, he beat me to it. He sent me a snap, and I opened it up. It was a picture of about half of his face, and he said, "Hey." He appeared to be in a dark area, and I couldn't tell much detail at all about him other than he was white with darkish hair. I sent him a snap back saying, "Do I know you?" He snapped me back almost immediately saying, "Yes, don't you remember me?" I asked him where I knew him from because I really didn't remember him. He just responded with a snap of his face and no words. I wasn't believing that he knew me at all, because after seeing more snaps of his face, he wasn't looking any more familiar. I didn't respond to him, but he sent me another snap a minute later asking me what I was doing. I told him nothing and asked him once again how he knew me. He didn't answer me this time either, and once again sent a blank snap of his face. He wasn't really making any sense, and when I left him unread again, he sent me another snap asking where I was. In that moment, I was happy to remember that I never had my location turned on in Snapchat, so nobody could ever tell where I was. I wanted to know more about this guy, so I clicked on his profile on Snapchat to see his username. But when I did, I noticed that he had his Snapchat location turned on. I then clicked on the map to see where he was and maybe get a better idea of where he was from. But when I did, I couldn't believe my eyes. He appeared to be right outside my house on the street. My heart suddenly started racing. My blinds were covering the windows of my bedroom, so I couldn't see out. I decided to slowly walk over to them and carefully look out. I noticed a car parked on the side of the street. It was a little ways away, and I figured this had to be the guy. I then went back on my phone to see that he had snapped me again. I opened it. I could now see that he was in a car. He asked me to stop leaving him on red, and at this point, I sent him a snap asking him where he was right now. I saw he opened the snap right away, but he didn't respond right away like he usually did. I waited several minutes, but he never did reply. I then looked back at the snap map, but he was now gone. He had turned his location off. I was afraid he had realized I was onto him and was now hiding. I slowly went back to the window, but when I looked out, the car was now gone. I was terrified. I now had no idea where he was and thought maybe he just parked down the street and was going to try to break into my house or something. I called my roommate to tell her what was going on, but I knew that she was at work and the chances of her picking up were slim. Sure enough, she didn't answer. I quickly went around the house making sure that all of the doors and windows were closed and locked. Thankfully, they all were. I went back into my bedroom and locked the door. I was just hoping that whoever this Josh guy was had actually left and wouldn't come back. About 20 minutes later, I heard a noise coming from my front door area. My heart started to pound even harder than it already was. I knew the door was locked though, so I was just hoping whoever was in there wouldn't try to break in. I got out my phone ready to call the police. Then, I heard the sound of the door opening. I couldn't believe it and I started to freak out, until finally I heard the voice of my roommate. It was her coming home from work early and not the Josh guy. I was so relieved and went over and told her everything. We were both a little creeped out for the rest of the night, but the Josh guy never came back. The next day, the Josh user had been deleted from Snapchat. I never did find out who he was or why he was seemingly stalking me. A few months ago, my best friend Joe and I got invited to one of our other friends' birthday parties. Unfortunately for me, I had to work that night, and I wasn't able to go. However, afterwards, Joe asked if I'd pick him up, and then he'd buy me food. I said sure, because I was always down for free food. I guess they had the party at a bar downtown in the major city that we live near. I was kind of bummed that I had to work, because as I was at work, I saw a few Snapchat stories of some of my friends, and it looked like a pretty good time. When I finally got off of work at about 10:30 p.m., I got a Snapchat from Joe saying he was ready for me to come pick him up. We mainly communicated through the text chat on Snapchat. I told him that I was on the way and asked him where to pick him up from. He then sent me his location on the Snap map, and I could tell the general area where it was. I asked him for a specific address, but he just said to follow his Snapchat location. This made it a little bit harder with no address, but I could still do it. I drove to the area, which was about 15 minutes from where I was. I got to where Joe was on the Snap map, but it was in what appeared to be a back alley behind several businesses. It didn't really look like bars though, just more like warehouse or apartments or something like that. I told Joe I was there, and he said he would be out in a minute. Then he sent me a snap saying he couldn't find me and asked me to get out of my car. I was wondering what Joe's problem was because I thought he was acting really strange. I parked my car and got out. I wasn't intending on being out of my car for long, just enough to call out for Joe to see if I could see where he was. But what happened instead was I saw 3 men start to run out from the building that I was next to. They were running straight for me. I quickly got back inside of my car and locked the door before the men reached me. Thankfully, I hadn't gone more than 2 steps from my car, or I wouldn't have made it back. I had no idea who these men were, but they were now trying to open my doors and all shouting at me. I sped away as fast as I could and drove all the way home. I contacted a few of my other friends who had been with Joe that night, and it was told to me that Joe had lost his phone at the bar earlier. I realized someone must have took it, and was now pretending to be Joe and communicating with his contacts. I went to the police and told them everything. Joe's phone was found cracked and in a dumpster a week later. Joe was able to get a new phone, but I don't think they ever found out who the men were who took it and chased after me.
This story happened to me last summer. I'm a 20-year-old guy and in my junior year of college. I was just relaxing on my phone in bed one night, a little bit past 1 a.m. I was right about to go to sleep when I saw the Snapchat notification on the top of my screen that a girl named Caitlin Smith had added me. Her name sounded sort of familiar to me, but I couldn't say that I knew who she was, so I went to the app and added her back. Then I went to Instagram and looked up her name to see if I recognized her. Unfortunately, there was very many girls by the name of Caitlin Smith to come up, so I had no idea which one was her, if any. I went on Snapchat again and looked at her snap score. When I saw that it was only 5, I immediately realized that this was probably a fake account, and then I deleted her on Snapchat. After that, I went to bed. The next morning when I woke up, my phone had several Snapchats on it from Caitlin Smith. At that point, I realized that I had my Snapchat settings so that even people that weren't my friends could still send me snaps. The first 2 were text chats. The first one read, "You deleted me," and the second one said, "Ha ha 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 ha." The next 2 snaps were both pictures, and they were all black with text of her cursing at me in various ways. I was pretty alarmed to see this, and when I clicked on her account once again, I saw that I had been blocked by her. I really didn't know who this was or why they were messing with me. Then came the scariest part. When I opened up my blinds in my bedroom window that morning, it revealed a sticky note that was stuck to it from the outside. I had to go outside to retrieve it to see what was written on it, and when I read it, it said, "Watch yourself." I remembered after that my Snapchat location was always on, and even though I had deleted the Caitlin user, we had still been friends for a good 10 minutes, which was more than enough time for her to screenshot my place on the map. I ended up texting all of my friends asking them if this was a joke, but to this day they all seriously deny it, and I really don't think it was any of them. Nothing happened again, but I have since made sure that my location is always off. I am a 19-year-old female and just recently graduated high school last year. This was by far the scariest thing to ever happen to me in my life. It all started midway through my senior year. I was relatively popular in high school, and I would get added on Snapchat by new people almost every day. I had so many friends on Snapchat that I didn't even know a good number of them. I was home alone relaxing in bed and watching Netflix while my parents were out shopping. I casually went on Snapchat and saw that I had several new snaps. One of them was from some username that I didn't recognize. I didn't know who this was, but I occasionally got snaps from people that I didn't know, and if I didn't want to talk to them, I'd just delete them and it was no problem. After responding to a few of my friends, I opened up the snap from the user that I didn't know to see who this was. Their username was pretty strange. It was like a bunch of random letters and then numbers that didn't spell any words or anything. When I opened up the snap, it was a video of a house. The video started by showing the house from the street and then zooming in towards a window. When I looked at the video for the second time, I saw that the house was mine. It was nighttime in the snap, just as it was outside, so it seemed to have just been taken. This immediately creeped me out,
and I went from being relaxed to outright scared. The snap had been sent from the user 22 minutes ago, so I was hoping they had left, but just to be safe, I slowly looked out my window towards the street. When I did, I couldn't see anyone or anything. It all seemed quiet like a normal night. That made me feel a little bit better, but then I got another Snapchat from the user. With my hands shaking, I went to Snapchat and opened it up to see. It was another video. This time, it showed the inside of a basement, which I immediately recognized to be mine. We had an unfinished basement that had dim lighting, and I recognized the light fixture to be ours. I quickly ran to my door and locked it. Then I quietly listened next to my door for any noises as I dialed 911 on my phone. I whispered into the phone as the operator answered, and I explained to them what was going on. I then went into my closet and hid. I was told the police would arrive in 10 to 15 minutes. That was not what I wanted to hear at all, because it seemed like such a long time. The first 5 minutes went by, and they felt like an hour, but I didn't hear any noises or anything. Then I got another Snapchat from the user. I didn't care, and I wasn't going to open it because I knew it would only make me scared. But then I started to get more and more snaps from the person, and they were blowing up my phone. After that, they tried calling me. I stuffed my phone into some of my clothes and just waited for the police to arrive. A couple of minutes went by until I heard the terrifying sound of my bedroom doorknob being turned. I was glad I had locked the door, but I didn't know if whoever this was would be able to break it down or not. Just as I was thinking this, I heard one extremely loud bang from the door, and at the same time I heard this, I heard the sound of sirens off in the distance. There was not another bang, and instead I heard the noise of someone running away. I stayed hiding in the closet until the police arrived, and when they did, the man had run away. I was just grateful to be alive and well. The police stayed with me until my parents arrived home, and the person who was in our house ended up being caught about an hour later. He turned out to be a guy who had gone to my high school 3 years before me and had stalked me from my Snapchat to see where I lived. I don't know why he broke into my house, but he got in through a basement window. I figured I didn't hear it because I had my headphones in when I was watching Netflix. I later got the courage to look at the final snaps he sent me, and they were chilling. The first one was a video of my bedroom door with him approaching. Then, there was a picture of my door with the words "Come out" in all caps. And finally, he sent a picture of his face with an extremely creepy smile. I used to walk to school with my two friends Mike and George every day in high school. We lived on the same street and only about 10 minutes from school, so it was nice. One day, we stopped at George's house to see a new car that his dad had gotten. We ended up losing track of time a little bit while doing so, and we all realized that we were going to be late. Because of this, we all decided to run the whole way to school. We were athletic kids, so we ended up making it to our classes on time. But after our first classes of the day, George told us that he had lost his phone. He said it must have fallen out of his pocket while we were all running, and on our way home that day, we retraced all of our steps. We weren't able to find the phone, however, so Mike called George's phone, but there was no answer. We waited some time and then called again, but this time the call got declined after 2 rings. This meant that we knew somebody had the phone and didn't want to answer us. This made George mad, but he then told us how he always had his location on in Snapchat, and we got excited that maybe we would be able to locate his phone this way. We looked on Snapchat, and sure enough his location was still on. We saw that his phone had been on a street about 10 minutes ago, and George's Bitmoji was in a car, meaning whoever had his phone was driving. We needed them to log into Snapchat again to see where the location would update to. So I decided to send a snap to the person saying, "Hey, I think you have my friend's phone. He lost it earlier today and we just want to get it back." A short time later, the snap I sent was opened, but nobody replied. This was concerning. However, we looked again at the snap map, and we were happy to see that the location was still on. But we saw that George's phone appeared to be in the middle of a woods. It was pretty strange to see, but George was furious, and by this time we figured 3 high school dudes would be able to take on whoever had George's phone if they wanted trouble. We all set out to the location, and when we arrived, we saw that it was a state park with a trail going out to the woods. It didn't look like the trail was used much, because there was grass growing all over it. We all followed the snap map and walked deeper and deeper into the woods. I'm not going to lie, I was a little nervous. Finally, we saw ourselves getting close, and we came around a corner on the path to see George's phone. But the phone was literally hanging from a tree by a string, dangling there. We all stopped in our tracks and froze. I got a bad feeling. We stood there and stared at it for a good 10 seconds. Then, the phone jiggled around from the string being pulled, as if to encourage us to go grab the phone. It looked like some kind of a trap, and I had a strong feeling come over me that I needed to leave. The 3 of us turned and ran as fast as we could out of there and didn't look back. We got back into my car quickly and jumped inside and backed up. As we did, I saw 3 large men start to emerge from the woods entrance. We didn't stop and drove all the way home. George immediately disabled everything on his phone and reported it as stolen. He was able to get a new phone the next day. I don't know what would have happened to us if we had attempted to get the phone there in the woods, but I'm glad that we didn't. This story happened to me just a couple of months ago. I'm a guy and I'm in college. It's been a few years since I graduated high school, but I still sometimes add friends from high school, or they add me here and there. One night, as I was playing video games, I saw a Snapchat notification. I looked at it and saw that I had been added by a girl named Mackenzie. I added her back, not knowing who she was. I figured maybe she went to my college or something. After I added her back, she actually sent me a text through Snapchat, and I opened it. She said, "Hey." I responded back saying hi. She then responded almost immediately with, "Do you remember me? We went to high school together." I responded back asking her what grade she was, because I really didn't remember her, and I knew basically everybody that I went to high school with. She then said to me that she graduated the same year as me, 2017. Now this made me slightly skeptical, because I graduated in 2018, not 2017, and I told her that. She then told me that she meant to say 2018, but it was a typo. Overall, we talked a short time, but something just seemed fishy to me. Then, after just about 10 minutes of awkward chatting, she asked if I wanted to hang out, and that's when I knew this was probably not a real girl. I looked at her profile, and her Snap score was actually decently high, but there was no indication of any last name, so I couldn't look her up anywhere. I decided I just didn't want to take a chance with it, so I left her on red and went to sleep. The next day, I had forgotten all about it and went throughout my day, doing all the normal things I would do on a Saturday, such as mowing the lawn and playing more video games. Sometime in the afternoon, I got another Snap from the girl. I opened it up and saw a picture of me mowing the lawn, taken from inside a car that was driving down my street. It had the words on the Snap that said, "Consider this a warning." I immediately deleted the user and blocked them. I told my parents about it, and they seemed a little concerned, but we didn't go to the police or anything. Over the next few days, I was sort of scared, but nothing else happened at all. I just don't know why this person was messing with me, but I'm glad it's over. This story happened to my friend Emily and I about 5 years ago. We were walking home from work one day. We worked together and also lived on the same street, so we would walk home together all the time. On this night, it was really nice out, so we stopped at a park. We went to the edge of it and sat on the park bench and had some food that we had taken from work. It was relaxing, and Emily took a photo of us together and posted it on her Snapchat story. We stayed there for about 10 more minutes and were really in no hurry to leave. Emily was looking at her story again to see the people that viewed it, which is something she would always do. Then she said, "That's strange." She said that a guy named Brian, who was not on her friends list, had viewed her story. She said she didn't know who this guy was. I grabbed her phone and looked at it. I saw that she had made her story public so that everybody on their Snap Map could see it if they clicked on our location in the park. I turned off that setting for her because I figured it was dangerous to have it on. We got up and left after that to walk the rest of the way home. As we walked down the path through the rest of the park, we noticed a man start to walk behind us. He looked to be about 40 and wore sunglasses and a black sweater. I hadn't seen him at all when we had been in the park, but I figured this had to just be a coincidence. But the man kept following us as we walked. I got a little bit concerned because the area of our walk home was headed into a more secluded area where there wasn't as much people around. We decided to walk faster, but when we did, the man seemed to speed up as well. We had about 10 more minutes to make it home, and we thought we were just being paranoid, but we were seriously scared at this point. Then, out of nowhere, the man started full-on sprinting towards us. The both of us turned and ran off the path into a slightly wooded area, and the man did as well. It went up as a hill, and we ran all the way up the hill until it got to a quiet sidewalk, where we thankfully saw a guy walking his 2 dogs. We approached the man and his dogs, and the man who was chasing us stopped and ended up running in the other direction. We told the man with the dogs we thought we were being chased, and he watched out for us as we walked a couple of blocks away. Then we walked all the way back home. We made it back all right, but we're very careful. It was a very bizarre thing, and it had to be the guy that saw Emily's story. We're convinced of that. I just finished my freshman year of college. I'm a female, and Snapchat is my main way of communicating with my friends. One day, I got a Snapchat notification that a boy named Ryan had added me. I opened Snapchat and added him back. I checked his Snap score and saw that it was 52,000, so he seemed to be a real guy. His username was Ryan and then a bunch of numbers that I can't remember. I sent him a snap of the top of my head and asked, "Who is this?" About a minute later, he responded. I opened his snap, which was all black, and said, "I saw you on Quick Add and thought I should add you." I left him on red after that, but I didn't delete him. Within a couple hours, I had forgotten all about him. That night, I was laying in bed and watching some TV before I went to sleep. I started to hear a light tapping on my window. I shut off the TV so that I could hear it better. After a couple seconds, I heard it again. There was 2 large bushes in front of my window, and when I looked out, all I could see was leaves and darkness. Then, I saw it. A hand came up from below the window and tapped a few times. I ran out of my room and got my dad, who was in the living room watching TV. He went outside and returned several minutes later, saying he didn't see anyone. I went back into my bedroom and tried to sleep. It took me a long time, but there was no more tapping on my window, and eventually I got some sleep. The next morning, I woke up and checked my phone. There was a snap from Ryan. It was a picture of my house that said, "Why didn't you open your window for me last night?" I went to respond, but he had deleted me. I thought about going to the police, but all I had was his username, and I figured there was nothing that could be done. That night, I was once again laying in bed and relaxing before I got tired enough to sleep. Once again, I heard tapping. This time, instead of running to find my dad, I texted him on my phone and said that the tapping was going on again. It continued for about another minute before I heard commotion outside my window and the sound of my dad yelling. I then called the police, and within 5 minutes they arrived. My dad was holding down the man, who turned out to be in his 30s, and the man was arrested. Since this happened, I turned off my Snap Maps, and I don't add people back unless I know them. This happened a few weeks ago. At about 10 p.m. on a Sunday night, my best friend texted me and asked me to come over. He said that a girl he had been Snapchatting wanted to come over and hang out, and she was bringing a friend, so I should hang out with them. He said we were all probably just going to sit and chill in the car and chat. I didn't really want to go, but he's my best friend and he's like a brother to me, so I thought, why not be spontaneous? I drove to his house and parked on the side of the road in front. He came out and got into the car with me. He said he had been Snapchatting with this girl for about a month, and she seemed pretty cool. He showed his Snap Map to me, which showed the location of his friends if they had it on. The girl had hers on, and it showed her on a road which was about 10 minutes away. My friend and I hung out for a while in my car, then checked on her Snap Map again. It showed her in a city that was past us. My friend was confused as to where she was going, and so he sent her a snap. We waited several minutes for her to reply, but she never did. We checked her map again and saw her in the parking lot of a park, which was about 20 minutes away. My friend tried calling her, but she didn't pick up. It was now almost midnight, and we decided to call it off and both go home and go to bed. Just then, she snapped my friend back and said she was on her way. My friend decided to let her come over after all and said okay. About 20 minutes later, we saw a car pull up into the street and park about 20 feet behind us. My friend told her we were in a car and in front of her. We watched her get out, and when she did, we could see there was at least 3 large men in the car with her. "Did you see that?" my friend asked. "The men?" I said. "Yes," he responded. She got out and started to walk to our car. After she got about 10 feet, my friend told me to drive. I put the car in drive and pulled out of there. As I did, the girl looked pretty surprised and just stood there before the car she was in drove up to her and she got back in. I pulled off my friend's street and could see the car was starting to follow us. I turned as soon as I could and tried to lose the car. I drove a couple of miles toward the middle school that was near us, and I could barely see the car behind us. When I started to drive past the school, I could see a police car sitting in the parking lot, so I drove in and entered the parking lot. The car started to follow us and then drove past. We parked next to the cop, and he questioned us what we were doing. We told him the story, and when my friend went to pull up the Snapchat, he had already been blocked. The cop told us to go home, and we did. I'm glad my friend told me to drive, because I don't know what would have happened to us. This story happened to me about 3 years ago. Back then, I was really into Snapchat, and I used it more than any other form of communication. I had a lot of friends on Snapchat, and a good number of them I didn't even know. They just had mutual friends, or maybe they went to the same school as me. I remember a girl named Nadia posted on her story that she was selling her MacBook Pro computer for $1,000. This was a pretty good deal, and I was in the market for a new laptop, so I responded to her story saying I was interested. I offered her $800, and we settled on $900. We agreed to meet the next day in the parking lot of a garden center just off a highway. It was about a 20-minute drive for me, and I arrived to see the place was pretty quiet, with about 5 to 10 cars in the parking lot. I snapped her and told her I was there. She responded by asking what kind of car I was in. I told her, and she said she would be right there. I looked around, but I didn't see anybody in the parking lot, just some empty cars. I was parked next to some trees and a dumpster on one end of the parking lot. I started to go on my phone when suddenly out of nowhere I heard something hit the back of my car. I turned around to see a man behind my car. Then I heard something come from the front end of my car, and when I looked I saw another man out of my windshield. They both started hitting my car from the front and back. I scrambled to start my engine. The men tried to block me in by grabbing onto the front and end of my car so that I couldn't get out without hitting them. I was able to turn and push one of the men back just enough so that I had some space to turn and then back out. They both came running to my car and hit it a couple times, but I floored it and was able to get out of there. I drove straight home. When I got home, my car sustained some damage, but nothing too serious. I never bothered to report the incident because when I got back, of course, I was blocked by Nadia.